Welcome to the At the Helm podcast, where we steer through everything from sports to superheroes. I am your host, Blake Helms. Welcome to the first episode of 2026, back in the studio after a month away on winter break. And today, like I promised in my last video, and what I've been wanting to do pretty much almost since I started, was do episode post the retirement of the greatest professional wrestler of all time, John Cena, just as a little bit of what's the word? Tribute. Yeah, a little bit of a tribute to the person who is very much responsible for me being a fan of professional wrestling. I pretty much tuned in to find out more and see John Cena, and I will get into a little bit more of that later. In this episode, my plan is to kind of go through the career in the WWE of John Cena, highlighting some of the key and more important stuff, character changes, title wins, monumental moments, key rivalries, and then end with his retirement run, my thoughts on some of that, his importance to me personally as a wrestling fan. And yeah, all that. So I'm going to start in 2001, after a little bit of independent work. I guess I don't know all the details, but eventually John Cena got signed to the developmental Ohio Valley Wrestling company, industry, whatever you want to call it. That was basically the early 2000s versions of what NXT is now, but not quite the same upscale and everything. But basically, you would go there, sharpen your tools, sharpen your skills, I should say, and then eventually go to, the main roster, WWE, which at the time, it's 2001. That's Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock at that moment. But and yeah, John Cena's class for OVW was tremendous. The five superstars that were in there at the same time as him, just a lot of them revolutionized the business. You start with Shelton Benjamin, a guy who was a great in-ring performer, great mid-card champion. A lot of people think he should have been world champion, never really got that opportunity. Vince just never pulled the trigger on it for whatever reason. Yeah, Batista, obviously, people know him now as the famous actor Dave Bautista, especially in Guardians of the Galaxy. But I mean, he was in Evolution. He was multi-time world champion. People kind of thought that him and Cena could be the next Rock and Stone Cold, pretty much. Lots of world champions, rivalries with Triple H, Undertaker, Cena, all that stuff. Great. Brock Lesnar, the next big thing, beat The Rock right off the bat, ended the Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania, left, tried football, became UFC champions, came back, won a bunch of titles, beat the crap out of John Cena, all that's good stuff. Randy Orton, really the person who's kind of just keeping that era alive for a lot of wrestling fans. He's been, because he's so consistent and stuff, 14-time world champion, Grand Slam champion, all that good stuff. And then, obviously, the subject of this video, the GOAT, John Cena. And then eventually, in June 2002, a week after Vince McMahon had gone on Raw, asking the WWE locker room to ask who's going to step up, who's going to show ruthless aggression. A few days later, that same week, on SmackDown, Kurt Angle issues something of an open challenge because, he's the best in-ring performer probably at that time, arguably the greatest in-ring performer of all time, the Olympic gold medalist. And then I don't even know if he had music, and I believe this was even in Chicago, funny enough, as a kid from Illinois, which I find interesting. He walks down to the ring in his very tight spandex shorts. He goes down to the ring. Kurt Angle asks, "What is the one quality you possess that makes you think you can get in the ring with me?" And then he just ruthless aggression punches him in the face. And he has a solid showing in the match, but Kurt Angle got one quick one on him with a roll-up pin. But, that was a great debut. And then he goes backstage, and eventually people are like, good job, kid, all that stuff. And then eventually he bumps into the other person who is in the GOAT conversation, in my opinion, the then WWE champion, the locker room leader, the American badass, The Undertaker. And then he asks him his name. He said, good job, kid. And then he gets to shake the hands with the standard bearer of the WWE, which I don't know if that was just Vince, like, saying he kind of trusted John Cena even right away or something, because, like, The Undertaker's Vince's guy. He'll always be Vince's guy. But I don't know. But, you know, that's a huge show of respect and confidence. And, you know, people would probably never think about it again if Cena just turned out to be a nobody, a scrub who just barely lasted, just couldn't swim in the deep waters. But obviously, given the career he ended up having, that's a pretty vital moment. And then, you know, a few months go by, he has some rivalries. I believe he beat Chris Jericho even on his first pay-per-view match. But after a few months, the fans weren't really connecting with him. They were getting stale. He was getting a little stale. There wasn't anything super interesting about John Cena. And he was going to get fired. Believe it or not, he was going to lose his job with the WWE. And I don't know what happens then, but it wouldn't be with John Cena as the face of the company. But then I believe they were on like a European tour, and, you know, they were all on all the talent guys were just kind of on a bus, you know, and, you know, I can't remember who it was. I can't remember if it was like Rey Mysterio or someone, but, you know, a couple guys in the back, you know, they started freestyle rapping for whatever reason. And despite his appearance, John Cena is actually a solid freestyle rapper. So he did it, and he did pretty well, I guess, because up in the front of the bus, hearing all this, is the $1 Million Princess, as she was called back then, the daughter of Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, who, you know, had, at this point, after being both on screen and behind the scenes in the company for a while throughout the Attitude Era, she had, and just being Vince's daughter, able to get close to his ear, she had a little pull. So, and her idea was that John Cena makes freestyle rapping, you know, his thing. It's his gimmick. And with that, the Doctor of Thugonomics was born. The character that got John Cena popular. You know, he'd come out, he'd be wearing his chain, he had a hat, maybe sometimes sideways on, all that. He'd come out with different jersey, whether baseball, basketball, football, all that crap, usually corresponded to what city he was in. And I believe he was mostly a heel, at least early on. You know, he was a bad guy, which nobody thinks of John Cena's bad guy, but he was a bad guy when that happened. With a lot of this, you know, he would rap, he would insult. His whole thing was insulting people in rhythmic patterns. You know, he was kind of a wannabe Eminem, I guess, in that kind of sense. He'd do, you know, it'd be funny. He'd do, you know, the people's responses would be good. If he was going to say a word that he may not be allowed to say on cable television, he would make it a really obvious rhyme and then just let the crowd say it while holding up the mic. So he didn't actually say it himself, whether it was a word for a man's private parts or the word that rhymes with duck or whatever. You know, that's what he would do. And you know, this gained traction. People liked it. It was fun. It was entertaining. He would have rap battles on occasion. Heck, even I don't know too much about the Dr. Thugonomics, like rivalries and everything, but I do know that he had a bit of a thing with I believe then WWE champion Brock Lesnar. You know, this isn't MMA Brock. This is 2003 early on Brock, but, you know, he's the next big thing. He's still an absolute freak of nature, even before he really went big on the steroids, and went to the UFC and all that stuff. But, you know, he fights Brock Lesnar. And then, you know, Lesnar and Cena had similar finishing moves. You know, Brock had the F5 where he would get someone up, kind of just lift them and spin them around a little bit. Cena also put someone on his shoulders, but instead he would just kind of put them over and have them land on their back. And, as an insult to Brock, or, Brock's move is called the F5. Cena started calling his the FU. And there's this really funny clip where I guess, Cena was doing his rapping thing at Brock Lesnar or whatever. They were just doing a promo thing. Cena kind of, as Dr. Thugonomics, he was a thug, I guess is a good term for it. And I don't know what the setup was, but I don't know if Brock couldn't compete because he supposedly had a concussion or something. But Cena said something on the lines of, Brock, you can't have concussion. To get a concussion, you need a brain. Chill. as soon as Brock stepped up to him, he said, chill, which I just think is hilarious. But yeah, then eventually he rode this momentum up, and then eventually at WrestleMania 20 in 2004. By then, Cena's a good guy. He transitioned, and maybe he didn't clean. Yeah, he was still kind of that same character, but not as rude and obnoxious and stuff. He challenged the Big Show for the United States Championship and won by doing the FU on a roughly 500-pound man, just because Cena is incredibly strong. The Big Show, I believe, once said that he called Cena the strongest wrestler he was ever in the ring with. Not necessarily because, pure strength, he is the strongest, but when he was on his shoulders, he felt it was completely stable. He felt sturdy, he felt completely safe, I guess. I'm sure Brock Lesnar and Mark Henry weren't exactly shaking a lot, but, maybe it was, not quite as smooth and comfortable for the Giant. But yeah, Cena becomes United States Champion, his first championship in the WWE. And he focuses on that for roughly a year for the most part. He changes the design from the, Star Spangled Banner plate to, it's still the U.S. It still has stars and stripes a little bit of it. It says U.S. title on it, but, it's spun. It was the first time that was kind of Cena's thing. He made a belt, and he made it spin. And I believe it was and JBL, I guess, took the title off him and then threw that belt in the trash, I believe, bringing back the original design. But yeah, that's the thing. The spinner belt worked well for Cena, especially at the time. That was his character and everything. But yeah, eventually, fast forward, he's had rivalries over the United States Championship. He's maybe won it once or lost it and won it back once or twice, maybe. Then 2005, the Royal Rumble. Eventually, it comes down to the final two to challenge for a world title spot in the main event of WrestleMania 21. And it's between Batista, member of Evolution at this time, good buddies with World Heavyweight Champion Triple H, and John Cena. I don't know everything he was going on at the time. All I know is that it came down to those two. And then in the most wacky thing, Batista's supposed to win. Batista is supposed to win this match. Batista hoists Cena up on his shoulders or something, but I guess momentum or something, just, they ended up going on the ropes, and then Cena and Batista eventually just fall over, both of them, and they hit the ground at almost pretty much the exact same time. Like, this is WWE. You only get the one take, especially in front of a live audience. They can't exactly, if Batista had hit first, they can't exactly just ignore that and say, oh, no, that didn't happen, but Batista hit, Cena hit first, Batista wins. No, but they did hit at literally exactly the same time. Crazy. And then Vince McMahon, he's pissed off. He's running down the ring. He's throwing his jacket. And then he gets to go in the ring. And then he immediately tears both of his quads. And so Vince McMahon, the billionaire, face of the company, who a couple years ago destroyed WCW, is just sitting there in the ring with two torn quads, trying to figure how to do this. So then they restart it. Batista eliminates John Cena. Batista wins. He goes to WrestleMania, all that good stuff. Eventually, I'm not sure exactly how, maybe didn't do enough research before doing this episode, but Cena ends up challenging WWE Champion JBL at WrestleMania 21. He didn't win the Royal Rumble, but eventually there's 2 world titles. He got a title shot for the other one. That because Batista chose to face and betray Triple H. But yeah, Cena chose to fight JBL. So Cena ended up fighting JBL. And then Cena won. In simple fact, John Cena defeated JBL and became the WWE champion for the first time in his career. That was his first world title win. And then I believe that's when he does the famous footage of him just kind of having the championship and just kind of falling into the crowd with the title because, he's so overjoyed and everything. And I believe at this point, Cena had kind of started to transition from he's still kind of the same guy, but, he's less Dr. Thugonomics. And, he's kind of bringing out the military, the camo kind of stuff, kind of changing more into what we think of as John Cena. He's not quite wearing all the bright colors and everything yet, but like he will in like 5 years. But, he's starting to become the character that we think of with John Cena. I believe he maybe starts even throwing around the hustle, loyalty, respect. I'm sure by then he's doing the "You Can't See Me" 5-knuckle shuffle. I'm not sure when. Eventually, they'll change the name of his finisher from the FU to the AA/Attitude Adjustment. I don't know whether maybe they did that more when they started going PG, but that eventually happens. He slowly is starting to become more, but he's not quite there yet. He did do some kind of it's still the ruthless aggression era. They're still WWE still a little raunchy. I mean, women's segments at that time weren't exactly doing 5-star classic matches week in and week out. I'll just put it there. But Cena is starting to transition into that. And, he has his rivalries on SmackDown, but then eventually the WWE draft happens. I believe shortly after WrestleMania it happens. And the first overall pick to Monday Night Raw is John Cena, the WWE champion John Cena. And then eventually during this title run, he will also change from the undisputed title design to the spinner belt championship with the WWE's logo in the middle, being able to spin and everything. Because, he did, that's his thing. That's what he did. People weren't exactly thrilled with that. And granted, it's definitely not my favorite championship design. Yeah, it is kind of like a toy. And the thing is, that stayed the championship design for like another 8 years, no matter who was holding it, whether it was Orton, Edge, Triple H, Batista, Jeff Hardy, all that stuff. Maybe Hardy never held that. I don't know. Hardy may have been world heavyweight champion. Whatever. But Cena, he is becoming John Cena. He's becoming that fighting champion. He's slowly turning in to Super Cena, where if the man gets shot in the back of the head point blank, he will kick out at 2. And he will get beaten and pummeled and destroyed throughout the match. He'll take damage, and then eventually he'll hit the 6 moves of doom. Or is it the 5 moves of doom? Shoulder tackle. 5 moves of doom. I stand corrected. He tried to add a 6th one, but that didn't really take. He did a shoulder tackle. Then he hit another shoulder tackle. He hit the side. So they'd swing and a miss. He hit them with the sidewalk slam. You Can't See Me. Bounced off the ropes. 5-knuckle shuffle. Hoist him up. AA, 1, 2, 3. Match over. John Cena remains champion. All that good stuff. But then eventually, WrestleMania is around late March, early April. Flash forward, and John Cena has just been in a brutal match. I believe he's bleeding and all that stuff. I can't remember why Vince McMahon was out there. He did something, But then someone else's music hits. It's the rated R superstar Edge, the first ever Mr. Money in the Bank. This is the first time that had been a thing in WWE. After he'd won it, I believe, that previous WrestleMania. He'd held on to it for a while. And then, Cena's down. Cena's beaten. And Edge, maybe this is how he got the nickname, the Ultimate Opportunist, goes down there, hands Vince McMahon the briefcase, beats John Cena, becomes world champion. Granted, he only held it 3 weeks and dropped it right back to Cena. But still, that Cena became the first person to ever have the Money in the Bank briefcase cashed in on him, which bit of a big deal. That became the standard for the Money in the Bank briefcase. The champion's injured. The champions just had a match. They're not at 100% whatsoever. Money in the Bank music hits. They cash in. Maybe beat him up a little bit. Pin him. 1, 2, 3. New champion. But, I said Cena got it back a few weeks later. And then WrestleMania 22 comes around in Chicago. And John Cena is being challenged by Triple H. Now, Chicago crowds and John Cena always have a love-hate relationship, apparently going back all the way to 2006, because the crowd wasn't exactly super pro Cena even then. This is Cena's early years. He's only been in the company he's only been there a little over 3.5 years at this point. But wrestling fans are fairly fickle. I like the fans are a huge part of wrestling. They're the most important part of wrestling. The pandemic showed that. But they're very fickle. They want to see new guys get to the top. But once they get there, and they're happy when they do get there for maybe a minute. And then it's like, oh, he's no good. He's boring and stuff. Especially when it's a good guy. They hate it. But, he's boring. Get the title off him. It happened with Cena then, even though he makes Triple H tap out in the middle of the ring. And everything. He makes Triple H tap out. That's supposed to be the biggest moment of his career at this point. I believe this was his first main event of WrestleMania. He makes Triple H tap out. The man who, a couple years prior, was in the quote-unquote reign of terror as World Heavyweight Champion, where he was burying everybody because no one could stand up to him anymore with Rock and Stone Cold gone. And Cena beats him definitively by making him tap out. And then there's a lot of people that aren't super happy about it. And then, not too long later, the second Money in the Bank winner, Rob Van Dam, he does things a little differently. The precedent hadn't really fully set in yet, since Edge was only the first to do it, and it fit his character to be the sniving little guy that just kind of sneaks up and fights champion whenever they're at their most vulnerable. Rob Van Dam, he's a good guy. He chooses to simply he plans his cash-in. He plans a match. He plans a guaranteed opportunity with John Cena. And so, he does this. And at One Night Stand Philadelphia, this is WWE's ECW at the time. WWE has the ECW brand. They're very Rob Van Dam pro. They despise John Cena. Cena does have the cool thing, walking the ring with the title and all that stuff, holding it up despite all the fans. But the man throws his t-shirt into the crowd. They throw it back. He throws it again. They throw it back. He throws it again. Someone wipes their ass with it, throws it back. It is probably the most hostile crowd in the history of professional wrestling. So thank God that Cena lost that match. Because this was the start of the common, if so-and-so wins, we riot. Or so-and-so loses, we riot. If Cena wins, we riot. This is Philadelphia, people. I believe it. You see what they do after the Eagles win the Super Bowl. Jeez Louise. But yeah, Cena eventually loses it. He eventually gets the title back. He beats Shawn Michaels in the main event of the following WrestleMania 23 in Detroit, Michigan, in the relatively new Ford Field Stadium at the time. Cena has a cool entrance where he drives a car through the glass window, big glass pan window, all that, cool entrance. Eventually, and Cena has, I believe this is Cena's title reign where he holds it over a year. But then in October, this is 2007, October of 2007, Cena gets hurt. He has an injury that's going to keep him out for, I don't know, maybe it was like 6 months, maybe a year. It could have been a thing that was supposed to keep him out for a year. But Cena, being John Cena, he says the way he did it was the basic recovery time is based off of doing physical therapy 3 times a week. That's a decent amount, that's a fair amount of physical therapy. Cena claims to have done it 3 times a day, which is insane. No, I said he hurt in October, and he could maybe be out 6 months to a year. 3 months later, it's the Royal Rumble. It's number 30's counting down. 10, 9, so-and-so. The buzzer hits, and Cena's horns hit. It opens up. Cena does the famous thing where he's going down, and then just goes. He goes in. He eliminates Triple H last. He wins the Royal Rumble. And I guess they did something weird with this one where Cena, decided to cash in, quote-unquote cash in his guaranteed title match, a month before WrestleMania. And he fell short. But then, I guess, he got his title match at WrestleMania anyway. He challenged Randy Orton. And like I said, he challenged Randy Orton for it, but I believe Triple H got involved somehow. And then the WrestleMania match at WrestleMania 24 ended up being Randy Orton versus John Cena versus Triple H. I want to say Randy Orton walked out victorious, but I know Cena did not. But then eventually, I believe Cena started going after the World Heavyweight Championship more. After this, and then this is kind of when Cena's starting to put on more colorful clothes. This is Chris Benoit's double murder suicide eventually happens, and WWE becomes a public traded company, all culminating in they go PG, they become kid friendly. Cena's their biggest good guy, so they make him the guy that every kid wants to be when they grow up and everything. And like I said, Cena's going after the World Heavyweight Championship a few times. He wins that. He beats Edge and the Big Show at WrestleMania 25 for the World Heavyweight Championship, where for a brief moment he held both Big Show and Edge on his shoulders at the same time, which is just nuts because that's 700 pounds. Edge slipped off eventually, but he hits Big Show, then he hits Edge. He wins the championship, all that good stuff. Then in 2010, a little bit after WrestleMania, their full PG era by this point, Cena's wearing the colorful shirts and everything. And, then this group, NXT was very different at this time. I'm just going to quickly explain real quick. NXT wasn't just the developmental brand. It was kind of a reality show. And after the first season of NXT, I believe Cena was in a match. I can't remember with who. Maybe it was Orton, maybe it was Punk or someone. But eventually, Cena is having a match, and then all of a sudden, all the people from NXT season 1 just show up, and then they start beating up everybody. They beat up the commentators, beat up the referees, beat up the timekeeper, and everything. They destroy the ring. They beat the crap out of John Cena. And this is supposed to be this great new big time faction that's supposed to run roughshod over WWE, kind of similar to the New World Order in WCW or D-Generation X. And people really like this. Nexus was really fun, especially with their leader, Wade Barrett. Unfortunately, at SummerSlam that year, Cena got a team together, Team WWE it was called, and they dispatched the Nexus with relative ease, especially for Cena. He beats them, he quote-unquote buries the Nexus and all that. Then he has more storyline with them. He got fired for a little bit. He had joined Nexus for a minute and stuff. They kept it going for a little while until he eventually beat Wade Barrett. With TLC, at the very least, a chairs match at TLC in December of that year and stuff. And more stuff happened. Punk, I believe, became the leader of Nexus for a minute. That version of the group with Cena probably had some stuff. But eventually, now it's 2011. It's WrestleMania 27. The Miz is WWE champion. John Cena eventually earns a chance to fight The Miz at WrestleMania 27 and ends up being the main event because, WWE championship, John Cena, all that good stuff. But, this isn't your basic, just The Miz versus John Cena. There is a third party involved. Someone who hasn't been in WWE for a while. Someone who is a big star. The host of WrestleMania 27. And someone who John Cena doesn't like. Someone who doesn't like John Cena. After, 7 or 8 years, aside from when he inducted his father into the Hall of Fame, this is the first time The Rock is in front of the WWE crowd. And he's the host. But then him and Cena butt heads because The Rock left WWE while he was in his prime and everything. And The Rock eventually, and The Rock left, he became a Hollywood actor. Cena started, so him and Cena butt heads because, The Rock's Hollywood. He doesn't love this business like Cena does and all that and everything else. But, eventually, in the main event of WrestleMania, The Rock costs John Cena the match. The Miz retains, all that good stuff. Nobody talks about The Miz. Everyone's talking about The Rock and John Cena. So the night after WrestleMania, The Rock and Cena plan to have their once in a lifetime match. They're not going to do it now. They're going to wait till a year later for WrestleMania 28. So that ends up being what happens. They wait for WrestleMania 28, and then they'll over the next year they just kind of make references. They jab. If Cena happens to be champion, I guess the match will be for the title. And Cena does eventually beat Miz for the championship. But then, a lot of people think about The Rock, but, it's a year to get there. Cena's still a full-time wrestler. The Rock's shooting movies and everything. So, what's he going to do in the meantime? He just won the WWE Championship. What's he going to do? So, then a very interesting thing arrives. CM Punk, the rebellious teenager to John Cena's do-gooder perfect son. CM Punk is nearing the end of his WWE contract. And I believe somehow, or some way, whether he just flat out asks Cena for it, or he wins a number one contenders thing or something, CM Punk becomes the number one contender and will challenge John Cena right before his contract expires at Money in the Bank in CM Punk's hometown of Chicago, Illinois. Now, Vince McMahon wanted CM Punk's plan for this match was to beat John Cena, win the WWE Championship, walk out, take it home, and you'll never see it again. And that's almost exactly what happened. Vince McMahon tried to pull a Montreal screw job. He tried to do a Chicago screw job. And, storyline-wise, screw over Punk. Cena stops this. And after a very match with a hostile crowd, Cena goes back in the ring. Punk hits a go to sleep on him. Punk wins the WWE Championship, goes to the barricade, blows Vince McMahon a kiss, and runs out with the WWE Championship. Now, they eventually crowned a new WWE champion, Rey Mysterio. Cena beats him. And after Cena wins the new WWE Championship, Cult of Personality hits. No one knows this theme song. No, everyone, it's a known song. No one knows who comes out to it, other than maybe Living Color. And then out comes WWE Champion CM Punk, which sets up a SummerSlam match to find who the true champion is. It ends up being CM Punk and everything. Him, Del Rio, and Alberto Del Rio and Punk, they fight over the championship for a little while longer and everything. But eventually it's time. Cena's not champion, and WrestleMania comes around. So it becomes him versus The Rock. And they do their things. They insult people. Rock makes fun of Cena's t-shirts. He makes fun of the "you can't see me" thing. He says he's going to put his boot into his ass. And John Cena, he simply calls him a movie star for the most part. And he questions his love for this business of the WWE. And Cena, when they were in the ring at the same time, Cena usually got the better of The Rock. Especially the one time The Rock made notes for his promos on his wrist with Sharpie or something, and Cena pointed it out. He said, just like I don't need notes for my promos on my wrist. And that's the thing. Cena's always been a great talker. He's always been a good guy on the mic. But he's never had someone on the mic other than maybe Punk who's on the level of The Rock. The Rock is known as the greatest talker in the history of professional wrestling. And Cena pretty much cooks him. Then they have their match. John Cena gets cocky. John Cena tries to finish The Rock with his own move. Rock pops up, hits a rock bottom, pins John Cena. So Cena is at, pun intended, rock bottom. And then he has a far from greatest year of his career. Brock Lesnar beats the crap out of him. I don't know if maybe he won a WWE championship, maybe he didn't, all that stuff. But eventually The Rock comes back. He beats CM Punk for the WWE championship. He brings out a new title design. He takes away the spinner. And people were not happy that The Rock beat CM Punk after CM Punk's 434-day championship reign. But the same night The Rock beats Punk, John Cena wins the Royal Rumble. So they set up their match again. Now, The Rock versus Cena for the WWE Championship. This time Cena wins. But a lot of people were hoping at this time, and Cena even made a new theme song to fit the character, and he planned the character out. People wanted Cena to turn heel at this point. They were tired of the goody two-shoes John Cena, who he'd been for a decade at this point. They wanted him to be a bad guy. Cena kind of wanted him to be a bad guy too. Vince wouldn't budge. But the fans, oh my God, they hated John Cena. They hated him. They chanted, "You can't wrestle. F you, Cena." All that bad stuff. Where it's not even just a few crowds. It's just everybody in general. Sorry, wrong sleeve. This starts the rise above hate thing. Cena is, the crowd hates him, but he refuses to change. He refuses to be the good, which is a kind of a good lesson to kids, in a world where people want you to change, want you to be bad, say no. Rise above hate, be the good guy, do the right thing, and you will win too, all that good stuff. But a good thing did happen out of Cena winning that championship. It gave a chance for someone new and young, not super young in this case, but, someone who's kind of popular with the fans to get a shot to be the new big thing. That person at SummerSlam later that year is Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan beats John Cena in the middle of that ring to the joy of all wrestling fans, and he beat him clean. He beat him straight up. No games or anything. And then Randy Orton cashed in right afterwards and became champion to screw with the fans. And yeah, that's the thing. I haven't talked about probably the most important part of John Cena's career, or at least the most important person to it, arguably. Randy Orton. Randy Orton and John Cena. Randy Orton is the Joker to John Cena's Batman. Or Orton is the Lex Luthor to John Cena's Superman. They are forever intertwined of the two top guys of their era. You can't talk about Randy Orton without John Cena. You can't talk about John Cena without Randy Orton. Over the years, they'd had many brutal battles. I talked about the WrestleMania thing with Triple H, but that's very little. They would trade the title back and forth every month. Cena would overcome Randy Orton and his obstacles. Randy Orton would find a new way to screw over John Cena. 2009, Randy Orton was the devil himself, and he made sure Cena knew it. He would just punish. He was sadistic in how he treated Cena. Their I Quit match is probably the best example of this. Throughout the match, Cena is getting tortured by Randy Orton. Like, Cena is handcuffed to the ring post. He can't defend himself. His body's exposed, and Randy Orton's just having batting practice on John Cena's ribs. But Cena, being Cena, refuses to quit. Eventually, Cena gets him in a situation where Randy's giving himself Cena's finishing submission move, the STF, formerly known as the STFU. And Randy Orton quits and all that good stuff. And at the end of 2013, after Cena tore his tricep at the SummerSlam match against Daniel Bryan, and people were ecstatic that he was going to be out for a while. Eventually, Cena comes back a few months later, and he wins the World Heavyweight Championship from Alberto Del Rio. And Randy Orton, after trading it once or twice with Daniel Bryan, is the WWE champion. And I guess Vince wanted one champion. So at TLC, at the end of 2013, they made a thing where Cena and Orton do a TLC match to unify the championships, where the winner will kind of hold both titles, but only having to defend it at them, it's a unification. They're becoming the same championship. You just kind of hold two belts to show your awesomeness and your aura. And Randy Orton wins that match. Randy Orton becomes a then 12-time world champion. And Cena at this point is a 14-time world champion. But yeah, Orton wins that match. He beats Cena in the rematch thanks to a little help from Bray Wyatt. Cena has a match with Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania where Bray tries to basically be a bad influence and turn Cena evil. Cena refuses. Cena beats Bray, overcomes that. He has another couple matches with Bray in that rivalry. RIP to the Eater of Worlds, Bray Wyatt. But yeah, he eventually moves on. Eventually, Daniel Bryan, after winning the world title at WrestleMania, has to vacate it. So there's a big match for a few people to win it. Cena becomes the world champion for a 15th time, one away from the record of Ric Flair. But then this is where I come in a little bit. This is where John Cena becomes a part of my life. A little bit before SummerSlam that year, I see my first match in WWE. It's just on TV at our house for whatever reason, and I'm watching it. They're showing, I guess in build-up to SummerSlam, they're showing Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania 30. And showing that how he's challenging John Cena for the title at SummerSlam. And I eventually watched John Cena's match where he beat The Rock at WrestleMania 29, which gets me a little more interested. And I asked, eventually, I just think about it. I asked, Mom, who won John Cena versus Brock Lesnar? Brock Lesnar beat John Cena up. He ate him alive. He sent him. Suplex City was built on John Cena's bloody carcass, basically. He kicked his ass. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And Brock Lesnar won that championship, kind of making it you can't beat The Undertaker's undefeated streak. People are still pissed that happened, especially with Brock Lesnar being the one to do it. but at least they used it. He beats The Undertaker at WrestleMania, then he just destroys Super Cena in the process. About a month later, I'm flipping through the channels. Maybe I'm looking for wrestling. I don't know. It's a Monday night. Maybe my mom tells me wrestling's on tonight. She was a fan back in the Rock's era. She probably knows Monday Night Raw exists. Eventually, I find it. Seth Rollins, Mr. Money in the Bank, is on. He's doing stuff. I don't remember what he was saying, but, I could just tell he was a slime ball scumbag, which exactly what Seth Rollins was at the time. And then John Cena comes out trying to beat him up, and Seth Rollins runs away like the weasel he is. And I'm just kind of hooked. Like, I don't remember too much of that first month other than The Authority, John Cena, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Kane, Randy Orton, and Triple H doing their stuff. Eventually, Team Authority versus Team Cena happens, where if it's 5-on-5 traditional Survivor Series elimination, if Cena wins, Cena's team wins, the Authority is out of power. If Team Cena loses, all but John Cena's team's fired. Is the first match that kind of made me a fan of wrestling. And the first match I remember thinking a lot about. And that was probably the thing that I said I was hooked immediately. Team Cena versus Team Authority made me hooked for life. Team Cena wins, the Authority's out of power. I'm giddy. I asked my mom right when she gets home what happened. I watched Raw later that night after reading an article for like 2 hours about detailing everything that happened in that match that I eventually watched, and I basically remember so much about. Eventually John Cena has a triple threat match with Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble. The first WWE pay-per-view I ever watched. Me and my 2 friends that I watched with at the time, because only one of them had WWE Network, and the only way to watch them back then. We watched John Cena. We think John Cena wins the title. We're so excited. Turns out Seth Rollins kicked out at 2. Eventually, Brock Lesnar comes back in the ring, pins Seth, keeps the title, all that stuff. Great time. Eventually, I also go over for WrestleMania that year. John Cena beat Rusev to win the United States Championship. Rusev's first loss in WWE. I was so happy. I was so excited. And then John Cena did this tremendous thing where he started the U.S. Open Challenge. Probably the best thing about wrestling in 2015. Especially looking back now as a more seasoned guy who knows more about the business and stuff, instead of just a silly 9-year-old kid who's happy to see John Cena all the time. Cena does it. Cena's the champion. He defends the title every week against a different opponent he doesn't know, whether it was Dean Ambrose, Kane, Stardust, now you may know as Cody Rhodes, debuting Sami Zayn. He has a tremendous rivalry with Kevin Owens, the NXT champion, from Yes Upstart. I'm shocked that they have Kevin Owens beat John Cena in his first match on the main roster. And then eventually Cena, after keeping the title for a while, he challenges Seth. I think he's going to win his record-tying 16th title. He gets screwed out of it. Seth Rollins wins both championships. Cena eventually wins it back. He loses it again. And Cena's out for a while with an injury. And then when he comes back, the greatest thing of 2016 happens. Well, at least arguably. John Cena versus AJ Styles. Oh my God, that rivalry was amazing. John Cena and AJ Styles. Cena started proving that he was really good in the ring, that you can't wrestle chance died away because he could wrestle. Cena's great at wrestling. And AJ Styles brought the best out of him. Their matches at SummerSlam, Money in the Bank, their match at Royal Rumble where Cena wins his 16th championship to tie Ric Flair's record are some of the greatest matches of all time. And I wish I could appreciate those matches watching them the first time more. Because I was only, this is 2016? I'm only 10 years old when this happens. I don't know AJ Styles other than what he's done in WWE the first few months he'd been there, which I really liked him, but I didn't know his history. I didn't know that he is one of the greatest wrestlers in the history of the like, business, especially in the ring. He's one of the most one of the most talented people to ever step in a squared circle, fighting. And this was a dream match. WWE built up. I clearly knew that Styles was a star in Japan or whatever before, but I didn't know the details of everything. But this is starting to be where Cena, after losing that title, after only holding it 2 weeks, he starts to leave the company so. He starts to wane. He starts going movies more. He comes back for a couple months, especially WrestleMania. Maybe has a match. Man, I really wanted his match with The Undertaker to be a 5-star classic for 30 minutes. End up being a 5-minute squash match for The Undertaker. But yeah, eventually Cena just kind of starts. He's becoming an actor and stuff. And then eventually the pandemic hits. And then, even though it was after the second show of the pandemic felt truly over, at least for WWE. You know, fans are in the arena again and stuff. But it really felt back when, after Roman Reigns had beaten Edge, had a great match, telling the whole world to acknowledge him. He's the tribal chief. He's Universal Champion. He's coming up on a year as being the champion at the time. John Cena's music hits. He comes out, does "You Can't See Me" in Roman Reigns' face. They have their thing. They have their 1-month rivalry where Cena's around for a little while. Cena's hoping to win that number 17, that record-breaking championship. But it's a passing of the torch match. You know, that's when Roman Reigns solidifies himself as truly the one. He is the face of the company now. There is no challenging him anymore. You know, Cena, you know, he's still an actor. He comes back for a little bit. He has a match with Austin Theory. He has a match with Solo Sikoa. He helped save Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40. All that good stuff. Then, at Money in the Bank in 2024 in Toronto, he announces his retirement. I'm sad. I'm shocked. But then he does the silver lining. His retirement's not done. His last match wasn't Solo Sikoa at Crown Jewel, where he took like 50 Samoan spikes and lost. No. He's going to do a 1-year run and just to close it out. And I'm ecstatic. This is the best chance for closure. He went the Kobe Bryant, not the Michael Jordan route for his retirement. And eventually, my dad texted me a few weeks before the Royal Rumble last year, or a week from Royal Rumble now. And my dad tells me that his friend Jim Nugent has tickets to the Royal Rumble. I say absolutely. I go with him. I buy this shirt. I get one of the greatest honors I'll ever get, and seeing the greatest of all time compete. I got to see John Cena in his last Royal Rumble. I got to see him have great moments with Roman Reigns, Punk, have his eliminations, and get down to the final two where I'm with Jey Uso, where obviously I want Cena to win, but I'm okay that he lost. I love Jey Uso. I yeeted for like 5 minutes afterwards. But, you know, that was a great moment for me. I will cherish that for the rest of my life. I will look at that video periodically for the rest of my life of Cena coming out. Especially that it was Cena, Punk, Seth with Roman waiting for them. That was just awesome. I mean, like, there's nothing like John Cena. You know, he's the greatest of all time. He's my childhood hero, to quote R-Truth. He was everything for me as a wrestling fan. John Cena is the pinnacle of WWE. There's a reason he's the greatest of all time. I didn't didn't call him the greatest of all time until a couple months ago. I was calling The Undertaker the GOAT for so long. But eventually the retirement run is probably what pushed me over. But yeah, let's continue the rest of the retirement run. A month later, my dad and my brother have come to go see the Iowa State game against Arizona. They've come down, hang out for a little bit. While I'm there, I get an alert on my phone, an ESPN alert. I see it. John Cena had turned heel. John Cena had become the bad guy by kicking Cody Rhodes in the balls after getting a title opportunity and then beating the crap out of him with a little help from The Rock and Travis Scott for some reason. It is the most monumental moment, the most shocking, the greatest heel turn I will probably ever see. Because you can't beat that. It's John Cena. He's the good guy. He had been a good guy longer than I had been alive. And I'm 20. In my 20 years, John Cena has been a heel after the eventually heel run for like 5 months. In 20 years, he's been bad guy for 5 months. But yeah, and his promos are amazing. I'm home from spring break and stuff. I'm listening to his promos as a bad guy so much. I love them. They're so good. He's the best talker in the business, along with The Rock, Punk, and The Miz, in my opinion. And, oh my goodness, it's just great. I love some of the insults he gave Cody, especially when Cody said that he was going to cook him. No, Cena says, I'm not going to cook you. I'm going to bury you. Say, oh, Cena buries talent. I don't bury talent. I am talent. I bury mediocrity and all that. I build empires for billionaires. All that stuff. And I like Cena as a heel. He says his goal is to win that number 17th world title, finish his heel run, and take it home. The wrestling timeline stops. He's going to ruin wrestling. And his plan starts to work. He beats Cody Rhodes in not a very good match in the main event of WrestleMania 41. But who cares if it's not a good match? John Cena just broke Ric Flair's title record. That is the moment. Who gives a crap what else happens? Night after WrestleMania, they immediately plan for Orton versus Cena in what I thought was a great match. Cena retained. The R-Truth stuff was really good. I loved his match with CM Punk and the build-up there. And then eventually, since Cody Rhodes won King of the Ring, he gets this title opportunity against Cena at SummerSlam. And then Cena becomes the SmackDown before SummerSlam, I'm very hesitant. Cena seems to be becoming a good guy again. He seems to do a face turn. But I'm hesitant. I know how heels work. This could all be a trick. And then at SummerSlam, he's going to pretend to be a good guy. And then at the last moment, be a bad guy to beat Cody Rhodes. Granted, it's a street fight. There's no rules. You can do bad crap in this match, and no one cares. Because unless someone else gets involved, it's all legal. You can kick someone in the nuts in a street fight. In a real street fight, that's what you should do. And the match is spectacular. Cody Rhodes versus John Cena at SummerSlam made up for the WrestleMania match in so many ways. It was so good. It was straight up. It was clean. Cody Rhodes, it's a finisher fest in the best way. And it's just amazing. I love that match. Cody Rhodes beats Cena. And then Cena does his stuff. He has a match with Logan Paul. Oh, Brock Lesnar's return was fun. The match he had with Cena wasn't great, but you know what? Brock Lesnar's back. That's all that matters. His match with AJ Styles is the greatest love letter to wrestling of all time. And then, on his final appearance in Boston, Dominic Mysterio, the man I really wanted him to fight, because I love going back to the throwbacks with Orton, Cena, Styles, and everything, Brock. But the new stuff, with Cody, and now Dom, That's what I really want. I want him to fight people like Dominic Mysterio, the Intercontinental Champion, the one title Cena had never gotten. It's his last show in Boston. The crowd is the most pro Cena crowd in the history of crowds. And Cena beats Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental Championship. In the feel-good moment of the year, Cena wins the title that had always eluded him. Then he has a fun final Raw in an MSG where he wins a 6-man tag match with Sheamus and Ray. It's just fun. Then Survivor Series, he goes against Dominic Mysterio, and then the entire Judgment Day has to help him beat. The return of Liv Morgan was awesome. Dominic Mysterio gets that big win. Unfortunately, it's kind of hurt right now, which really sucks. But hopefully he's back soon and has a good match WrestleMania. But that was a great match. And as sad as it is that Cena lost his Intercontinental Championship, it's okay. Dominic got that win in his hometown of San Diego. It was a great moment. And then the Last Time Is Now tournament happens. A lot of good moments and matches. And then Gunther earns the right to be John Cena's final opponent. And then it wasn't the match of the year, but it was a really solid match. People got their closure. The night was, Cena, I guess, didn't want it to be a tribute show just for John Cena. But that's what it was. Disguised as a typical Saturday Night's main event. There were just matches between NXT superstars and WWE guys. AJ Styles, Cody, Bayley against young upstarts like Obafemi, Sol Ruka, Javon Evans. And then the main event, Gunther, the man who was promised to make Cena give up. Gunther's an amazing heel. I love Gunther's work. I think he's one of the great. When Gunther calls himself the greatest wrestler in the company right now, I may not go quite that far, but he is right up there. I love Gunther's style. His Intercontinental Championship reign of 666 days was amazing. And the match was good. I really liked it. They eventually have Cena tap out. I'm not sure that would have been what I would have done. When Cena had his moment where he got out of the sleeper hold and stuff, I probably would have had Cena, after Gunther gave him the elbows and everything, I probably would have had Gunther powerbomb him twice or something and then pin him to show that Cena couldn't give up. But that's just me. I understand, and I'm sure Cena had a part of it in it, and him deciding. And yeah, he went on Cody Rhodes' podcast and kind of explained it. And his thinking was, when you read an obituary, so that got morbid fast, but when you read an obituary, they typically say they passed peacefully. That's kind of what Cena wanted for his career. That's what he wanted for his WWE career to be. He smiles. He realized he gave everything he had. There's nothing left for him to do. And he lets go. He doesn't give up. Damn it, wrong one again. He never gives up, but he does let go of his career. He leaves his bands, his sneakers in the ring. There was a lovely video package with a song that will now forever make me think of John Cena from Fall Out Boy. Damn it. And it was just sad. I didn't end up crying like I thought I would, but it was still sad. And it's still weird that I'll never see John Cena wrestle again. Because if there's one person I believe when they say that they will never have another match, it's John Cena. I don't think he would want to sully his good story and everything. But, sometimes money talks, but I don't think that's going to happen with John Cena. He has all the money he needs. And I loved, John Cena is one of the most impactful wrestlers of all time. And, I've talked about his wrestling career, a little bit of his acting. But the best thing, the greatest thing about John Cena isn't that he's a great wrestler, that he's the greatest wrestler of all time. No, that man is just a good person. Like he doesn't have to spend all that time doing charity work with Make a Wish for all those sick kids. He doesn't have to spend as much time as he does doing that. Spending any time is good enough is good, but the man doesn't do things halfway. He does it 1000% Like he's helped so many kids live their dreams. I mean, and yeah, he has a good point. Like these kids get one wish and they want to spend it with you. How can you say no to that? And that's what I think defines John Cena. That and that he is the greatest of all time. The never seen 17, the last real champion, the franchise, the prototype, the doctor of thugonomics, the leader of the C Nation, and just a good human being. All right. Thank you for listening to my rants about John Cena. If you like this video, subscribe if you want to see more, ring the bell for notifications, comment down below your feelings about John Cena wrestling, or if you don't care about this, maybe give me some pointers on what you think I should do next. But thank you. I'm Blake Helms. Thank you for listening to the At the Helm podcast. Have a wonderful day.